Good evening and welcome again to another program here on Globespan 24x7, our Monday evening program. My name is Charles Sugrim, your moderator for tonight. I want to welcome all of you. We want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available to us. We want to thank Devin for doing the technical work so that we can broadcast this live across Guyana and around the world. We also want to thank our viewers who have been contributing their small donation to Globespan 24x7. That helps, your $5, your $10 a month. It goes a long way to help us continue with this program as we want to bring everything that's happening in Guyana to you. We also want to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in to be with us tonight. And we look forward to a very, very nice and entertaining and also informative program tonight. No stranger to us, we have tonight two co-hosts with me, Dr. Euclid Rose, no stranger to us, a political scientist here in New York, a professor at college, and marketing guru, Mr. Salahuddin Nasruddin, no stranger to us as well. So gentlemen, both of you, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Charles, and again, greetings to all Globespan listeners, viewers near and far. Again, I must thank Nohar Singh for giving us this platform to express our views and hear the views of our politicians and so forth, and also Devon, our technical director. Thanks again to all of you, and welcome to you, Mr. Persaud.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Well, I was going to introduce Mr. Persaud now. For the first time, we're having former minister in the last PP administration, and now he's now the foreign secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I know, Mr. Persaud, I have this habit of referring to a former minister as minister, and I think once you're a minister in my book, your title is always still a minister. Now, some people think that should not be, but I guess I'm from the old school, so I like to address my guests the way they should be addressed, which is minister. I know you're a former minister, but today I will address you as Minister Persaud. So welcome to the program tonight, Minister.
Thank you very much, Charles, and thank you to Salim and Dr. Rose. I know for me it's a pleasure being here for the first time on this platform, and certainly I look forward to many other occasions joining yourselves and other panelists.
Thank you. Minister, for the last time in 2015, after the PDP would have lost the election and the coalition won, you were one of the few ministers in the former PDP that congratulated the coalition. I think that was very magnanimous of you. In my book, I think that was the right thing to do as you transition power from one government to the other. I think you did the top of the line thing to congratulate the coalition for their winning. Now, having said that, Minister Robert Persaud was absent for 5 years, from 2015 to 2020. So where was Robert Persaud during that time?
Well, first of all, I made it clear prior to the elections, and I dedicated to the president and to the leadership of the party that I was no longer interested in ministerial or cabinet portfolio going forward. This is before the 2015 election, but I would rather serve in other capacities. And it was also an opportunity to give others, having been a two-term minister, for me it was an opportunity to give others a chance to participate and to contribute to the level of the cabinet and the parliament, and also to occupy ministerial position. And I thought that we needed to create space, and that was my decision. And then I went into the private sector, still engaged, but engaged at a very informal level, making my contribution in ways that I thought was suited, and for those who were involved and those with key responsibility knew what those contributions were, and even up to, throughout that period, through the election campaign and so forth. So obviously, may not have been watching across the newspaper and the television. I was doing my part, but in roles that I thought would have been beneficial to the process and to the country's development.
Thank you. When the coalition was in government and this dual citizenship thing came up and the court ruled that dual citizen cannot be minister, the APNU AFC government created this post of foreign secretary for the minister at that time who could not be minister. In opposition, the opposition leader, Bar Jagdeo, objected to this post. I'm not going to put you in that spot, but in this government, they have continued posts of foreign secretary. So what does the foreign secretary do? What are the responsibilities of the foreign secretary?
It's fundamentally is to support the Minister of Foreign Affairs and international cooperation in executing the mandate of the government, the foreign policy mandate. So it is one of providing technical support and pursuing specific projects and specific engagements, as such as the one that we are discussing here, or will be discussing here tonight. So it is allowing the minister to focus on the big issues, the big policy issues, reporting to cabinet, reporting to the National Assembly, and our role is just to advise and support the minister in executing those duties. It sounds fancy, but for me, it's just doing the job of helping and moving things forward.
Great. And before I bring in my two co-hosts, it's the question out there that we cannot escape. As you know, when you left the previous PP government, you were the Minister of Natural Resource. And the report in the Kaitro News has been having for the last month maybe about the Kaitro and the Kanji block. As the minister, what do you have to say about the award of those blocks?
First of all, I don't read the Kaitro News, so I can't even make a specific reference to those particular points. But since there are matters that have been raised on different occasions, there were a lot of reviews done internationally and locally. And I just want to make one statement, because a lot of these matters are they're sub judice and subject to legal action. So I will be very conservative in my comments, if you forgive me for that. But just to say that no law was breached, and this was found internationally. It was done consistent with how other areas were awarded. And thirdly, it can stand international and local scrutiny. And that is all I will say at this point in time, given that some of these issues are both at the national court level and at the international court level.
Right. Okay. So, but based on what Kaishun is saying, and I say yes, you don't read it, but if it's true, and I don't think they will want to publish things that is libelous, but they're saying that the contract that was awarded to the Kanji block and the Kaitro block, Guyana really gets nothing. Is that your take on it? I mean, what part did you play if any, in the award of these contracts?
My role was zero. First of all, let me make it absolutely clear that all the technical work was done by the GGMC. The recommendations were made and submitted to the Minister of Petroleum, who at that time was the President of Guyana. It is comical to suggest that you would have had arrangements whereby the people of Guyana, the government, the Treasury would not benefit from any such arrangements at this point in time. And I say that without any reservation. But again, I'm going to be very circumspect in my comments, given that these matters are the subject of court matters and issues in Guyana and outside of Guyana.
I see a point. I know, because if it's it's in the court, then you really can't discuss it as much. But is there any provision you think in the contract for any renegotiation? In your view, I don't know. I've not seen the contract, but have you seen that?
I'm not a legal person, so I would not want to pretend that I have expertise in contract negotiations or renegotiations of this nature.
I know Leland Rupnarayan sent me a question to say that, again, a Kaitro News reporting that no capital gains tax was paid for any resale of any portion of any block that was awarded for the Kaitro or Kanji. And I think if that is true, I don't know how we're going to interpret that, but it seems to me that if the block can be resold, any gain on that, Guyana should have at least got a portion of that in capital gains. But again, that's something that the policymakers there will have to look at. And are you engaged in any way in any of these renegotiation?
No, I'm not. That's outside of my portfolio. There's a minister of natural resources, and I think some of those questions you should probably direct to him. The vice president has oversight over the energy, oil and gas sector, and I don't want to be intruding in anyone's portfolio responsibility to be offering or proffering what the government's position is. But I'm quite aware that there are a lot of misconception and misrepresentation of the facts, including to what you refer to. But again, because these matters are subject to court action, I would rather the court address those and the necessary remedies are offered to those who have.
Yeah, we break there a little, but so I can report Minister Robert Montgomery Persaud, that you had nothing to do with the awards of the Kaieteur and Stabroek block.
I've said what I've said just now, and you can. It's there on public record.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Minister, for clearing that up. And I know there's a much more question but as you said, you had nothing to do with it. It was the president, who was the Minister of Oil and Gas at that time, who made those decisions. So we'll have to hopefully get President Ramutar on the hot seat.
No, please do not misrepresent me, Charles. I said that these things all the technical work were done by the GGMC, the technical negotiations. They were transmitted by my office to the president. The president acted on recommendations.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, except GGMC had no prior experience in oil and gas. So if they had no outside help, I don't know if GGMC was qualified enough to make those recommendations.
You see, it's, and I'm going to make a generic statement. And it may apply to the comment you offered. But again, because some of these matters are subject to court, I want to be general. Sometimes we are unaware of facts, we're unaware of the reality, and we rush to conclusion. The GGMC is well equipped, has been in the business of dealing with oil going back to the 70s, the 80s, had the technical capability. It wasn't a superstructure. I agree it needed enhancing, as any other department in this country, any other agency, both private and public. But for us to rush to conclusion of incompetence or lack of capacity, I think it is doing an injustice to people who stick around, work hard, technicians perhaps who could have gone elsewhere and made good money, but stayed here and helped the process to move around. Unlike some of the other experts who fled, but now are offering comments and more or less are being very insulting to the people who did the hard work in taking us to where we are today on many fronts, including oil and gas. And I just want to make that broad, categorical statement. It may have specific reference to what you said or in other areas too.
Yeah, that's a fair statement that those who stayed there, they stayed. But again, to get the details of this contract, whatever recommendation were to your office and then for your office to the president's office, I guess we'll have to talk to the people who are actually involved. So yes. Thank you for at least answering some of the questions. I know our viewers out there might not necessarily agree with you in your answers. Some will think that you shouldn't comment on them. So we have a mixed audience that watch our social media here, and different people will have different comments. But I want to thank you so much for discussing up front. And but really tonight, you're on this program because of the diaspora involvement in Guyana's development. So I want to now segue into, I know Dr. Rose Salim, who want to go first with Mr. Persaud?
Go ahead, Dr. Rose.
Okay, Mr. Persaud, good night. Now, good night. I just want to come back to something about your position as Foreign Secretary. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as is normally said, is the eyes and ears of Guyana, or for any country for that matter. It can either improve the image of the country or destroy it. My question to you is this: how you intend as a Foreign Affairs Secretary to promote Guyana's interest its image and its reputation abroad?
If we was, let's step back. You know, over the past several years, particularly over the last year and a half, after the no confidence motion and after the debacle and the torture that the country went through for 5 months after the elections, our country's image suffered very, very, was devastated. So much so that many of the governments were not dealing with the Guyana government. So much so that international agencies were not interacting. And when we went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we found that a lot of initiatives and cooperation programs were languishing because of the lack of respect and the lack of engagement. So the immediate task was to establish us as a country where we believe in law and order, respect for democracy, respect for the Constitution, and let both governments and private sector, investors, and everyone know that Guyana is a place where you can come, the laws will be respected, the Constitution, the supreme law of the land will be given its full potential. We will ensure that we have political stability. And so our work is to convey that, to ensure that that is understood by our external international partners, and as much as possible to keep engaging with our external partners, countries, agencies, understanding them what their concerns are, and be very much responsive to those concerns. As you said, and it's a very good point, is that we have to maintain the integrity of the image of the country as much as we want to fulfill our other areas of work within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and international cooperation.
Yeah, and if I can expand on that a little bit too, Dr. Rose, I believe in as much as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Foreign Secretary's role is to kind of set the pace and set the tone as to what Guyana is and could be. I think it's again up to all Guyanese to ensure that we are promoting Guyana in the right way. And I think the current administration, in its position so far of being very active, being very pro-investment, and looking at key areas, of ensuring that Guyana's image is maintained and kept at the highest possible altar. So I think we've got to ensure that it's not a department, but I think the whole government needs to ensure that it's fitting in to a policy that will create an image that's wholesome, not only for non-Guyanese who are looking to Guyana, but especially for Guyanese who I think might be the low-lying fruit that has the most lucrative opportunities that we can go after.
Now, let me continue. Thanks, Salim. Let me continue. Mr. Persaud, you tell us what's supposed to be done. But what I would like to know from you, how you will go about doing that. What are your plans and strategies to improve Guyana's image, to maintain its reputation or improve it, and so forth? What are you or your colleagues at the ministry plans and strategies of doing that?
You know, we have a very young president, a very visionary president, who has made it quite clear what his expectations are of the ministry. We have a minister of foreigners who's so young, energetic, for the country's interests at heart. And the mandate that we've been given is to ensure that we are in a position whereby we're able to promote Guyana's interests, promote the opportunities that exist in Guyana, to be much more responsive to the people out there, but also to governments, to our partners, to ensure that we develop a caliber of staff that are capable in bringing about and realizing these objectives, and is also very strategic of interventions which are required at this time, which are necessary for the Guyana that we're building, for the Guyana that is undergoing some level of transformation. And so it's a very fluid situation, notwithstanding the restrictions that the COVID pandemic has given us in terms of our ability to travel, ability to engage, but as much as possible for us to develop the type of tools and the type of policy and the type of initiatives that will fulfill and allow us to attain those objectives to which you refer to.
Okay, let me try one more time. When I talk about what plans or strategies, I'm hoping that you will tell me, look, we'll have a plan in place, and the plan will be based on this year to do advance, how this plan going to advance Guyana's interests abroad. What is the plan? If you can explain the plan or the strategies, how we'll go about doing it, that's what I need to know. For example, let me give you an example. If you tell me that, look, we're going to try to develop foreign policy relationship or good relationship with most of the countries that we are not with already, and to expand on our diplomats abroad or something. But I just need to know what exact plans you have. That's the question I'm asking.
Well, first of all, to strengthen our missions, look at areas where we believe, depending on our economic and strategic interests and political interests, where else we need to have a presence. But it is more or less to reinforce, strengthen, and look at identifying new opportunities that will bring about benefits to the country. You know, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the mandate and the focus has been one in which has been constant, but also we have to look in terms of what changes in terms of our national objectives, our national development needs, that we then adjust ourselves, like looking at more trading relationship. Take, for instance, removing barriers to market that our exporters have. That is a renewed focus that we have. Like tonight, we'll be talking about how do we engage with the diaspora, that they can be allowed to play a part, but also being an important resource in transforming and moving our country. So there are specific types of interventions or plans to which you are referring to. Some of them are ongoing. Others are how we can tweak, how we can improve, and what we can reinforce in many regards.
Okay. Now, would you agree, and this has been the rumor and the saying, and that's a substantial component, which is correct, that our ambassadors, maybe other countries are the same too, our high commissioners, our consul generals, they sat in an office waiting to sign passport forms or affidavits. Would you agree that these are people supposed to be going out there to meet with people from the private sector, to meet with investors, to meet with people who can help boost Guyana's image, rather than sit in an office and just go to ceremonial functions? It is time for most of these developing countries, in Guyana inclusive, to have these people do more than what they're doing, because I know for a fact that most of them just wait to sign a passport form, to sign 10 passport forms, to do this and do that, and go to ceremonial functions. But they should be the ones to interact with the private sector, whichever country they're in, and also with business people, investors, and so forth. What have you to say about that?
Well, you know, it comes back to an issue of leadership. And whichever dispensation you have, and if you don't give clear directions, clear guidelines, and define what your expectations and your objectives are, we can have situations whereby we may not have the type of performance that we want out of our leaders. And sometimes I don't blame the diplomats out there. I would blame, the lack of guidance and specific guidance. And that is one of the things that we are doing, the Minister Todd and the rest of the team, is looking at how it is we can make our missions, our high commissions, our embassies much more dynamic, much more responsive along the line. That is why I'm saying there's a renewed shift, and there will be a renewed focus on ensuring that the missions serve the country's developmental and economic and social needs, not only about, which you described, about doing the ceremonial function, but being out there in terms of looking at opportunities, how it is that we can solve some of the country's problem based on our presence in different capitals, and see what areas of collaboration, both of the public and the private sector. So it is being a bit more creative, a bit more dynamic. But it comes on at the end of the day is how do you define the type of leadership, your expectations, what mandate do you give out there to these heads of mission? And if you don't be very clear and also be very, I don't want to say the word assertive, but also ensuring that there's some level of accountability and performance review constantly. If that doesn't happen, you will find situation where persons will be slacking. But for me, if we now have an opportunity to make, as it were, a renewed start, because our country is undergoing new things, better things, and hopefully the foreign policy aspect of it will continue to serve and in many ways contribute to our development.
Before one last question before we go.
Okay.
Now, would you agree, Mr. Persaud, that the government, President Orfanali's administration, would move towards establishing in each embassy a trade section, an investment section, and a socio-political section? Do you think the government will move towards that direction?
Well, the orientation of our missions would be one in which we'll have to serve the economic objectives and trade objectives of the country. And so certainly our staff will have to be so oriented and given the necessary tools, given the necessary training if that is required, so that they can also be able to fulfill those objectives. But I'm saying we're living in a dynamic situation. There are new needs of our country. And yes, there will be a renewed and enhanced emphasis on trade and economic activities coming out of the missions, but also to look in terms of how it is our staff can be able to satisfy and to fulfill those undertakings.
Yeah. Salim, before you come on, Minister, would you look at other countries, how they use that, Dr. Rose's question, how they use their embassies and their consulate to enhance the development in their country? We look at their models and see how much we can use from them to, to support our, local embassies ourselves. Is that something that you look at?
Well, it is always important to look at best case and study best cases and see what is applicable in our context. And so that has been an approach that we've taken in all areas, and certainly would be one very useful. And I'm quite sure Minister Todd, talking to his colleagues at both at the CARICOM level, hemispherically and across the globe, would also be looking in terms of what has worked well, what lessons we can draw. And certainly it's an important tool that should be used in terms of developing and formulating and implementing policies and programs. Excellent.
Salim?
Yeah, well, I'd just like to come in. First of all, Robert, thanks a lot for joining us here tonight, and thanks, Charles and Dr. Rose, for accommodating this discussion on the diaspora. I think it's very, very critical. Come back to something what you asked earlier, Dr. Rose, about the missions being more investment and trade focused. Not so long ago, a few weeks back, we had the Americans who they flew to Guyana by jet, to ensure that they can get piece of the pie in Guyana, right? And you can't blame America, right? America's a great country because they're the best salespeople in the world, right? They've gone to Guyana, they took their team, they see opportunities, they know they have some of the structures and as well as the finance that's available to lend to Guyana so that Guyana can, of course, grow. But at the end of the day, they're selling Guyana. And I think I'm hoping, and based on what I'm seeing and my engagement with Robert and others in the current administration, that we definitely need a more salesy approach to our foreign engagement and our foreign participation, whether it's diaspora or not, So I'm hoping that and that this would probably include Go Invest also, that where we can have Guyanese persons like Robert and like Minister Todd and even the president and vice president going to other countries to sell Guyana, what Guyana has to offer. Guyana has a lot to offer. I mean, oil and gas is very new and nascent, but we've got other industries that we can sell the world. The whole world needs food at this stage of the game. We can produce more food than we can possibly imagine. So I think it is important that we start selling Guyana. I know for the past 10, 15, 20 years, we were not that salesy sort of approach with our foreign policy. So I'm hoping that we can look at these things as part of the engagement moving forward. I think, coming back to the base of this discussion, it came off of a week of when CSIS launched their report and concluded that Guyana has the highest migration rate, the highest brain drain in the world. You're looking at 30,000 Guyanese leaving Guyana every year. And we all would agree that those 30,000 that are leaving are not the least or the least skilled or least experienced or least educated of our people. It's probably the best of us, and they come to the United States, they go to Canada, they go to Caribbean, UK, and they open businesses and they work even for the governments in those countries, and they excel. And I think this report highlights two main things. A, that Guyana is rapidly growing, and Guyana also, at the same rate, has a diaspora that can certainly be inserted in that economy to kind of move things forward. So I think we should really focus on how do we engage, and more importantly, how do we make the diaspora participate in Guyana's current economy and the growing economy moving forward. For me, there's four main areas that we need the diaspora to participate in. One, of course, is bringing their skills and their experiences and so on in Guyana in all sectors. And as you know, the brain drain is not only affecting the oil and gas sector, but it's affecting just about every sector that we need to grow and develop and create additional industries from. So I think skills and so on is very important. There's of course investment, which is a big area that the diaspora can participate in. It is estimated that the diaspora is worth over $30 billion in the United States and Canada. Over $30 billion. If just 1 or 2% of that can translate into some sort of investment opportunity in Guyana, you're looking at a game changer, and then you've got tourism. We've got 800,000, and I always say that there isn't 800,000 Guyanese. There's 1.6 million Guyanese in the world. 800,000 is in the United States and Canada and everywhere else, and they've got a lot more disposable income, and we need to figure out a way to get those thousands of Guyanese back into Guyana on a regular basis, because every time a plane touches down into Guyana, it's revenue for the government, it's jobs for the people, and there's so much more benefits in it. Then of course there is the whole charity and giving back side of a diaspora. If you look at any other country like Israel and India, they when it came to job, investment, tourism, and charity, those are the 4 areas they thoroughly engaged their diaspora in, because they know that the diaspora, when they leave their shores, will become a lot more creative, a lot more innovative, a lot more wealthier, and more importantly, their hearts are still in their homeland. So I think those are the areas that I would like to see and work along with guys like Robert and others as they pursue this new strategy and this new revving up of Guyana.
And gentlemen, when we come back, Mr. Persaud, if you don't mind, we want to deal on those specific things that Salim spoke about, how you can, what role you will play in facilitating these things that Salim just spelled out to us. Just for our viewers to know out there that the U.S. Senate has just confirmed Judge Amy Coney Barrett as the next Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. So she has been confirmed 52-46. So when we come back, we will zoom in, Mr. Persaud, on those specific things that Salim raised. Thank you so much.
Travelspan is pleased to announce that the airport in Guyana is now open. There are flights from New York and Miami non-stop to Guyana. Call Travelspan for all your travel needs to Guyana or for your vacation to Mexico or Punta Cana. Call 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. Flights are now on sale to Guyana, and vacation packages are now on sale to Mexico and Punta Cana. Call 718-845-0437. Logistics International, based in Trinidad, with representatives in Guyana, is pleased to announce its shipping services from Trinidad to Guyana. Logistics provides shipping services and has experienced personnel to handle all of your shipping needs from Trinidad to Guyana. Buy in Trinidad and let Logistics handle all of your shipping to Guyana, from small boxes to container sizes. Call Logistics in Trinidad at 1-868-336-8218 to handle all of your shipping needs, and they handle all sizes. Logistics International has been shipping for over 22 years to many Caribbean countries with reliability and dependability. Call 1-868-336-8218 in Trinidad. That's 1-868-336-8218. Or email at liclcargo@gmail.com.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to our viewers. We want to thank Minister Robert Persaud for a really lively first session with questions from Dr. Rose and with Salim. Salim were more comments than questions. But in the second segment, we want to zoom in on specifically what role will the diaspora play in Guyana's development, as Dr. Rose was asking for specificity, and so is Salim as well. So, Minister, tell us how you expect to engage the diaspora in the development of Guyana, bearing in mind that a lot of Guyanese back home thinks that we going back home, it's a threat to them. And they have a legitimate fear because, as Salim mentioned, Dr. Rose mentioned, they come to a foreign country, they're exposed to different systems and different procedures. So you go back with a broader knowledge of specific things. Not that the guys back home are gaining knowledge too, they have their specific knowledge, that they're gaining there. But what role will you play, or what facilitated role for the diaspora to feel comfortable going back to Guyana to help in the development?
And it's an important question you asked here, because we've had efforts and attempts made of engaging, reaching out, and mobilizing the diaspora over the past decades. There have been limited success over the years, but what we've thought now is to have a much more comprehensive approach. And how do we achieve that? The first thing is that let us agree on a strategy and then develop a plan of action based on that strategy. That strategy would also benefit from the type of work that CSIS did in terms of looking at case studies, countries, what worked well for them. It's not necessarily we have to reinvent the wheel to get the best system or the best arrangements or the best mechanism to engage and to work with the diaspora. So benefiting from that global and that panoramic assessment of what has worked elsewhere, matching that with the local needs and the peculiarities of Guyana and our Guyanese diaspora, wherever they are, United States, Canada, UK, the Caribbean, Suriname, Brazil, wherever they're situated, how it is that we can connect with them, mobilize them, engage them. And so the issue is, how do you do that over time? Is it the role of government to do that? Is it the role of the private sector to do that? Is it the role of associations and groupings such as yourself to do that? Is it the role of, take for instance, civil society, religious organization, whether you call it benevolent bodies? And for me, it is not no single entity responsibility, but has to be the collective. And through the strategy is to see what government can do, what the private sector can do, what civil society can do, what the diaspora organization and entities can do, and how it is we can all come together and create and galvanize and mobilize and have a sustained way of not only engaging, but also seeing what it is that the contribution. And there are many ways the diaspora can contribute. The basic one is persons relocating and coming back to the country, either for business opportunities, job opportunities. Some persons come back for retirement because of the quality of life here. Some may say it's better than some of the other challenges that you have in some places where the diaspora. In some issues, we have where Guyanese are coming back who've been to Venezuela, and given the political crisis in Venezuela, they've come back because of the economic situation has deteriorated, and Guyana today is a better place. Suriname too, you've had some instances where people have come back over the border. So that's the first one, people relocating, remigrating. And to support that, what we have is which I think is a very fair and attractive remigrant scheme, whereby persons are allowed to bring back their personal effects, vehicles, so they can, as it were, to re-establish their livelihood here in Guyana. Also, we have through the Ministry of Housing looking at development of remigrant stream through a public-private partnership. That has been done in the past. I know it's something that is also on the card. So that's one way, people coming back physically, seeking out, searching opportunities, bringing their skills, bringing their expertise, and wanted to contribute. The second thing is too that we have a lot of persons who have capital. They've done well in the diaspora. They want to invest. And for them, I think because of their connection to Guyana, they want to invest in something in Guyana once there's a decent, fair, and safe rate of return. And you'd have heard the president talking about the $250 million housing fund targeting the diaspora. That's another mechanism where persons can bring their capital and they don't need to come, as it were, or give up their livelihood or whatever they're doing. But they too can play a part. Another element too is in terms of
I was thinking, Minister,
what we've had, the brain drain.
Minister, if you don't mind, I'm thinking of let's deal first with the human resource part, and we can get to the investment part afterwards. What I'm saying is that, if you don't mind, one thing we have to also put in mind is the security in Guyana is not the best that we can think of. So people are worried about coming back there with the security arrangement, and of course the rule of law. So those things need to also be put in place for people to come back. But I remember when President Ramutar was in New York when he was president, he had set up what is called a platform for the diaspora to have their resume posted. I know Salim recently started another website, the GuyanaWorx, to post your resume. What I'm saying is that what are the specific skill set that Guyana will need to launch this new development we're talking about, and where can the diaspora send their resume, maybe through Salim's website of GuyanaWorx or the government setup. So I don't know how it's going to work interacting with to get the skills that we need for development in Guyana. How will that be done?
Well, first of all, I see the initiative that Salim has undertaken. We want more initiatives such as this. This is an opportunity he has seen. There was a need, there's an opportunity, and he matched the two. There are others, who may be looking for, say they are an engineer, or they're a medical professional, or they're involved in some sciences of some sort, whether it's food processing, whether they maybe have expertise in oil and gas, manufacturing, the different areas that whereby you have skills need. For me, it is that collaboration we have to establish, whereby things now, we live in a virtual world also, whereby companies now will be able to advertise what skills they're looking at, and directly they're matched with the persons who have the relevant competence and skills. For me, I don't want government to impose and to insert itself when it doesn't need to. We must facilitate, we must create the opportunities, we must create in that enabling environment. You talk about this security, yes, those are some of the things government have to focus on. How do we improve the police force? How we deal with some of the other issues that create the conditions for which you have issues of a breakdown in law and order, and how it is we can deal with that. Constitutional reform also. Through our economic transformation, there'll be more opportunities. A wide array of intervention government can do in terms of policy, in terms of action, is to create the enabling environment. What happens inside has to be initiatives taken by the private sector, individuals, businesses, various organizations, so that they too themselves can get involved, rather than sitting back and waiting on government to take the initiative. And so my message here is we want the diaspora, we want the businesses, we want both in Guyana, outside, we want everyone who are involved to take the initiative. We will support, we will encourage and we will do our part in creating that enabling environment.
Excellent. Salim? Yeah, go on.
I can expand on that too. You know, since I launched GuyanaWorx.com, which is of course a platform that allows employers in Guyana, whether they're a Guyanese company or expat companies, to access a wider, deeper, richer pool of skilled and experienced professionals in the diaspora or around the world, you know, wherever Guyanese might be. And of course, there's a lot of Guyanese who want to work in Guyana also and take advantage of the opportunities that are available. And I got to tell you this, since I launched, we've had a few hundred resumes that have been uploaded to the site. And I've been getting calls about almost every day from persons who are like, what's available in Guyana? How do I get a job in Guyana? What are the, how do I access, what are the legal stuff that I need to get done? You know, is there a checklist or something? So there's a lot of excitement about Guyana. I mean, you could, on any news platform, you Google Guyana, there's 2 or 3 stories that are creating a buzz. So in addition to job seekers, there's also a lot of companies that have reached out to me and say, hey, I want to get involved. I want to see how this works, you know. So I think it's one of the tools, one of the many tools that Guyana will need to engage and to build that bridge between diaspora and Guyana. I'm coming back to your earlier questions about Guyanese feeling that they'll be slighted or they'll be overpowered by diaspora persons going to work in Guyana. I think that's probably a fallacy. I think it's just a feeling, and it has never been addressed frontally by any strategy at all. And I think right now there's a concerted effort. Everyone thought that the APNU administration would have given us a stronger linkage with the diaspora. In fact, they did the opposite. You know, they ensure that the diaspora don't go to Guyana. But I think what I'm seeing now, what I'm hearing now, is more of a deeper embrace of the diaspora and more of a deeper attraction towards a strategy. See, if you don't have a strategy and you don't execute on it, everything will go wrong, including perception and including it not realizing the goals that you want to realize. So I think the administration right now, which is very pro private sector, is ensuring that private people take initiative to get these things done. It's not government job to run business, and we all believe in this. So I think empowering the private sector to take the initiative, be innovative, and build a platform that will not only connect the two, but remove any kind of perception that they might be. So I think in moving forward, we have to ensure that agencies like the one that Robert is heading for the diaspora is supported by multiple tools that will make it happen. It wouldn't happen because someone writes a nice strategy and it sounds good and he promotes it. It happens when we build the infrastructure and the tool around it to make it happen. And I think that's what at least GuyanaWorx intends to do, is to ensure that whatever Robert is doing and whatever the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is doing, whatever the government is doing, whatever companies are doing in Guyana, that there is a pipeline that's providing and supplying the skills that are necessary for that.
Right. So where are some of the areas, Minister, that people can go to, like what Salim just mentioned, to know exactly what they can do to have an easy transition to Guyana if they want to go there? Is there any platform they can go on? Does the embassy have the information, the consulate, the website they can go to get those information?
Well, what we're trying to do currently, we are revamping the website of the ministry, whereby we will be putting make it much more user-friendly, make it much more supportive of the different initiatives and how it is that people can be able to access information and to be guided. Secondly, the link with Go Invest is critical. The link with other government agencies, and also, as I said, we want to bring in the private sector, other agencies, others who want to be part of it. They too can feed into the online platform where people can go there and be able to be accommodated and to have their issues addressed and be properly guided rather than be running all around. So even before you leave or before you make an undertaking, you must be able to have all the facts at your disposal and know what are the steps. And you don't have to know someone. All you have to do is what it is I need to do. And that's where we want to build a system rather than, oh, who do you know? Who can I call? We want it to be in a way in which, what do I need to do to ensure that if this is what an area I want to go in, this is an undertaking I want, I know what I have to do. And that's what we want to make it much more service-oriented, but whereby people are able to interact and to benefit from whatever is available, both private and public.
Excellent. And I also, before Dr. Rose come on, I also submit my resume through GuyanaWorx, and I think it's a really nice platform to use. I really enjoyed using it, and I invite every one of you out there who are watching, go post your resume on the platform, and as Salim said, and as Mr. Persaud said, the Guyana, whoever is in Guyana looking for professionals or whichever skill set they're looking for can go there and get it. Dr. Rose, question for Mr. Persaud.
Yes, Mr. Persaud. As the Foreign Affairs Secretary for decades now, there's been a general practice for diplomats in the diaspora and even the ambassador in Washington. If they're from a political party, they will normally meet with people from that political party, and they'll try to represent those people's interests. In other words, a PP diplomat would hardly go and visit Brooklyn, New York, where blacks live, Guyanese, and they're actually supporters of the PNC or APNU. And the same is true for a PNC or APNU supporter. They will already come to Queens. Now, do you think it's time for us to break that barrier? A diplomat should represent everyone, not pick and choose which party supporters or whatever it is. So do you think that it is time for us to unify the people in the diaspora? Because the blacks in Brooklyn, PNC supporters in Brooklyn, and PV supporters in Queens, Richmond Hill, they're millions of miles apart. They don't meet, they don't get along, they don't do anything much together. I think it is time for us to break that and start to drive the unity question from up here. So what I'm asking you to do you think that Guyanese in the diaspora should adopt the motto, Guyanese first, regardless of their race or their party affiliation, in order to unify the people in the diaspora? We're all Guyanese here. So one party, the PP diplomats, must not represent or visit PP areas, and vice versa for PNC or APNU diplomats. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, any representative of the state is supposed to serve all the people of Guyana, whether they live in Guyana or whether they're based in our missions or any capital. And if that is a situation that has been going on, which I haven't experienced that when I was minister, I've traveled a lot in the diaspora, and I've been into areas where you've had persons who migrated, but they would have supported different parties, and I've had free interaction, across communities, and our diplomats then would have been facilitated of that. Whether it was an intense interaction is a different issue. But I think fundamentally we have to always ensure that representatives of the state, people who are paid by taxpayers dollars, that they serve all the people of Guyana, all communities, notwithstanding whatever persuasion. And I think you will see that being much more crystally clear, and something that we also want the diaspora community should not accept. And they should ensure that they have some form of representation, and these things are brought to the attention if they think or if there's a perception. Sometimes a lot of it is perception rather than the reality. But even there's that perception of all, we should use the mechanisms available to bring that to the attention of people at the ministerial level, even the president, to say, look, we are not satisfied with the level of interaction with the representative of the country. That being said, I would expect that persons living in those communities would be much more inclined to be agents of unity rather agents of division. And I saw during the election, during that 5-month crisis period, that you had sometimes more agitation of division coming from the diaspora than happened in Georgetown or in Guyana itself. And so the diaspora itself needs work to be done. Leaders in those communities need to get down and start sitting down together and addressing those issues. It'd be difficult for us in Guyana, running a country, to come to whichever community they're living in North America and try to fix issues of community relations. That has to be the role, and that's why I'm saying that the leaders of the diaspora have to take responsibility. Church leaders, business leaders, community leaders, leading academics have to do a greater part in uniting those communities, because it filters down. It filters down when there's division in the community, be it in New York or elsewhere, it filters down to Guyana. And we saw that very clear during the election period.
Okay, let me say this. You said you used a key word there, which is the operational word, suppose. But the diplomats do not act in those areas I specify. They act in the interest of the people they represent, the party people they represent. So my question to you is this: what concrete plans you and the minister and the senior staff and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs have to make this a reality, that diplomats don't behave to represent their party's interests only, but to represent all Guyanese? What concrete plans do you all have?
First and foremost, they've been given the clear mandate that they have to interact, serve, and support and work with the communities, number one. Number two, we depend on the feedback from leaders like yourself, people who are in the day-to-day in those communities, to say, look, X, Y, and Z has happened. We need some level of accountability. And that feedback is also important. Reach out, play a role in that regard. So for me, it has to be a two-pronged approach. One, the clear direction from Georgetown, but also some level of accountability, checks and balances, utilizing leaders, community leaders, prominent members of the diaspora to give us that type of feedback and to hold those officers accountable and let us know what is taking place. It is not just sitting back and saying, oh, this should be done. Mm-hmm. Rather, we want you to be part. And one of the issues and I think one of the informal mechanisms where that perception can be addressed is having the constant engagement in diaspora. The more that people come out, more that people talk in, you'll get that type of feedback. Or people on the ground would realize that there's this informal and formal mechanism whereby persons are held accountable for action or inaction.
Yeah.
Okay. One final question, Minister. Yeah, one final question, please.
You want to leave that for the next session?
Of course, I grew up as a kid in the diaspora. I went and lived in Guyana for quite a while, and I'm back in the diaspora. And let's be clear, it's not like the diaspora does not reflect the politics of Guyana. Guyana is deeply entrenched in ethnic politics, and that politics or that culture has also been transplanted in the diaspora. In as much as we are eating Bora and Hassa that comes from Guyana, that we want to eat in Richmond Hill and Brooklyn, we brought also that ethnic politics here. And I must say, growing up in the diaspora, we assume or we believe that because Guyana requires some of our skills, that Guyana is totally disorganized and that we are so organized. The diaspora, for all those who are listening, is not organized. The diaspora has its issues, and I think the politicians who come into to a disorganized diaspora setting will automatically, fall into that category of pandering. But I think with the new energy and the new buzz that Guyana is creating, I think the diaspora need to take a step back and say, hey, let's get our act together. Let's organize ourselves. Let's build the structures that are required to communicate with the government of Guyana. I know Robert Persaud in his position, and even previously guys in his position, when they wanted to speak to diaspora, who can they speak to? There is no diaspora federation for organization. So I think in as much, if I can finish, in as much as we need to look at a diaspora engagement, we have to look at a diaspora organization also, because we are not as organized as we believe we are.
And that's what I want to talk about when we talk about investment, Mr. Secretary. We want to talk about that division within the diaspora. We are not a united group. We are very fragmented, and that's one of our downfall. And when we come back, we want to address what can the government do with a public-private partnership to bring our people, as Dr. Rose was also mentioning, closer together. One thing I want to mention before we go to break is that I know Dr. Rose talked about the division of our Consul General and our ambassadors and so on. But I think I have some dealing with our outgoing Secretary General, Miss Atterley, at our consulate here in New York, and I think she reached out a lot. She went to Richmond Hill quite a bit. She went to Schenectady. She went to Brooklyn. She went to all over the place. And she did reach out. Now, is there more can be done? Obviously, more can be done. But the thing is, did she bring the community together? That's something that we need to discuss, and maybe how the government can bring us together, as Sally mentioned, as a cohesive group around wherever we live. And I think Jerry Govaya made a good statement today. You know, he mentioned those in Florida, the same thing in New York and in Toronto and in Miami, wherever we are. We need to form groups that are across party lines, across racial lines. That should be back of the equation. What should be forefront is the development of Guyana. And we want to talk about that in terms of also how we put our funds for investment in Guyana. When we come back, we will discuss that.
Cannot travel due to COVID? Then treat yourself or your loved one with a gift. Purchase it online, then let TravelSpan Shop and Ship take care of the rest. TravelSpan is now offering a shop and ship program to Guyana and Trinidad. Cheap rates plus tracking and multiple offices in Georgetown, West Coast Demerara, and Berbice to take care of your package. Treat yourself and ship your Christmas gifts early this year. In Guyana, 227-1701, and in New York, call 347-238-2201. That's 227-1701. And in New York, 347-238-2201. Let TravelSpan and Globespan take care of your online shopping and shipping. Globespan
Welcome back to our program. I want to thank Mr. Persaud for being with us. I know he indicated that he thought this program was 1 hour. He'd have to leave us shortly. So we want to capture him before he leaves. Mr. Secretary, as we mentioned in closing, as Sally mentioned, all the segregation, and Dr. Rose mentioned the segregation in our society. Individually, as Sally mentioned, we have about $30 billion combined, collectively. Individually, we are not so fortunate. How can we put together groups of Guyanese who will pool their resources together and go to Guyana and invest? What would you advise? How can that be done?
Currently there's an effort to enhance our support for investment, both local and foreign. We have a new head of G Invest, Mr. Ramsroob there, and I'm quite confident that he would be able to shape the organization, the entity, in a way that will be able to support that particular type of interest. What are the areas of opportunities? Both not only looking in terms of public, but also private. But businesses are looking for partners. What are the new areas in terms of the government strategic plan? And I think that has to be, that resource, that entity, that agency has to be fully utilized in addressing that particular need. We will try to, as much as possibly, to have convergence, to have linkages, so that when you go on a particular portal or you go on a particular website, you send there, you get all the information. Also having our missions and so forth, they'll be able to connect you even before you reach onto Guyana, to give you the type of advice and to give you some sort of perspective and support. But at the end of the day, I want to see more proactiveness from the diaspora itself. We live in a very globalized, connected communication. You people in any part of the world know what's taking place in Guyana. They have a clear idea of what the opportunities are. And now that you have a government that is very much committed to supporting these types of investment and these types of activities, you have ministers who are accessible, who you can call and you can have a meeting with. They will point you into direction. So you have a very open door, accommodative, a very inclusive type of tool, as it will catalyze the type of undertaking you have, whether it's investment, whether it's time in terms of supporting products, in terms of partnering with the private sector. But I want to see a much more proactive approach and utilize the agencies that are out there that will be able to, as it were, to guide and to enable your activities.
And your office is available for people to call in to talk to your staff or to you?
Oh, yes, certainly. They have particular issues that the staff will be able to guide, address, and support. It's there. Yeah. But now, at the end of the day, we will try to make sure.
And can I ask one last question?
Yeah, Dr. Rose. Yeah. Salim and Dr. Rose, I'm coming there.
Mr. Persaud, it is easy to say that we're available, we can call, but every time someone calls, they get a secretary. And no one gets back to you. And I'm saying to you, everybody sees who calls on a cell phone, but no one return the call. So it's theory to say that, yes, you're always available, you can make phone calls. But my question is this: ministers are considered generalists, which means that they don't have a thorough knowledge for the ministries that they run or they head of. Now, which means that they have to rely on the staff there or advisors. My question to you is this: most ministers don't have any experience. What experience do you have prior to taking up the job as foreign secretary in foreign affairs?
First of all, I think it is unfair to brand ministers as not being versed in their sectors. Nearly every minister that I know currently that is serving, they have a full grasp of their sector. When you interact with both local and foreign, they're very impressed with the level of competence, responsiveness, and even accessibility. I know there may be instances where somebody may even call me, like now, somebody's calling me, I missed with 4 or 5 calls. If the person doesn't know that I'm on a program here, they would be having the same idea you have. I watch your number and I just ignore the call. People, sometimes they're conflicting schedules and so forth. But that's minor. So I would say the caliber of ministers certainly far superior than we've had with the last year, and certainly bright, able. There's a mixture too of experience in it that is willing and can take this country forward in all areas. I mean, not everyone is an expert in every field, but as much as possible, you work with your team, you work with people who will be much more. You bring the best and the brightest along with you. You offer that type of guidance, and you move the country forward in that regard.
Yeah. And I can vouch from personal experience since I launched GuyanaWorx, which has a direct sort of relationship with what Robert's division does. And Robert himself reached out to me and said, "Hey, this is a great project. It fits right into our strategy." And he allocated a few persons for me to work with, and I'm working with them on a daily basis to share ideas and to ways I can upgrade and getting content and data from them. But I think Guyanese generally, we love to complain. We've got to get away from that and build something that Guyana can talk to us on or about. If we just come with ideas, ideas are a dime a dozen. Especially in Guyana, and in diaspora also. So we got to go beyond ideas. We got to build something that the government, persons like Robert, can look at, touch, and analyze and say, hey, this is the value of it, and therefore I will allocate resource and personnel to it. We just can't want to call ministers just to generate ideas. That'll work anymore.
Gentlemen, I think that tonight has been a very interesting discourse. We need to continue this, and I'm quite sure we will continue it as we roll out our strategy, the specific action. I want to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share some of our ideas, answer some of the questions. We're in very early days too, so we will need to come back from time to time as specific initiatives are rolled out. But certainly it was nice interacting and answering questions and clarifying and together having a better feel. And I think that is the type of discourse that we need. And again, I just want to leave with a simple message I started out, that we want a much more engaged, a much more proactive, and a much more supportive diaspora. Get up and take the initiative. We're here to enable and facilitate. Don't wait on government. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
I also want to thank you for appearing on our program tonight, and we look forward to having you in the future to continue the dialogue. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Persaud. Thanks, and have a good evening.
My pleasure.
Rest of the evening.
You too. Good night. Good night.
All right. Okay, guys. Thank you. So we have Mr. Persaud had to leave us. Me and say, how can we use, and this is government I'm talking about. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow with one of the ministries to talk about GuyanaWorx, because they see this as something it's not an idea, it's something that is a tool that adds value to either their process or to their goals that they want to achieve. So I have a meeting tomorrow. I had one last week, and this is not Ministry of Foreign Affairs and so on. These are other ministries who saw value in something that like GuyanaWorx.
Now, Solomon, let me say this, and this is not a disagreement. This is just what I call an assessment. One of the things I don't do is this. And Charles knows it. I have contacts with most of these ministers back home, the president right down. But I don't use my experience. I'm talking about the Guyanese population in general. People cannot reach these people. That's a reality, not only in this government, in previous governments. And when we're going to say people must do their own thing, I don't understand what the meaning of that. But what I'm saying to you, if ministers are not available, then should have people accessible. I didn't get to continue because you were telling about James Mitchell in St. Vincent Grenadines. Mitchell, when he became the prime minister, he told his secretary, don't schedule no appointment for me after 1 o'clock in the day. And he was all over St. Vincent Grenadines, all in the rum shops with these guys sitting, eating, drinking, all in the country parts. People have problems. He said, okay, make a note of it, get back to office. He called the minister, so-and-so problem exists, go and fix it. Yeah. And I'm saying, you don't employ ministers to be able to do things all day. You don't employ ministers that look into the interests of the people. And when you're saying that Guyanese have a bad way of doing this, I'm not buying into those discussions because that's not true. Every country have the same problem. I grew up in Montreal, it's the same problem you have.
I've had this discussion with other Guyanese and I asked them the same thing. So what can we do? So they're telling me that ministers are going to all these villages and doing things, and I agree, they are. I'm seeing them every day. But how do we monitor it? How do we measure it? How do we see where it's impacting? And we got to go, and again, I'm coming back to you know what you said. We have to develop structures that ensures that we achieve our goals. In America, for example, or in Canada, we don't need to see a minister for anything. I don't need to call a senator in Florida if my drain get blocked up here. I call the utility company and they come and they clear it up. If they don't clear it, you know, somebody else will call me and tell me that they will come and fix it. So I think systems needs to work, not ministers. Ministers are there to ensure that we have systems in place, that we have, you know, better process of getting things done. And I think that is where the skills and experience of the diaspora can come in more meaningfully. Rather than just saying that the minister is not available, why don't we build some kind of systems of some kind of process or some kind of technology to ensure that they become accessible?
Well, let's talk about that, Salim. Let's talk about that. How can we build a structure in the US to unite our people for the purpose of the development of Guyana?
I think if the opportunity in Guyana does not bring us together, I don't know what else can bring us together. I think there is enough things that are happening, the buzz that's around Guyana, and I think the government is taking the first step and at least addressing it from a strategy perspective. They've brought in some professionals, they've brought in economists, and they're looking at this. I think it is now, the onus is now on the diaspora to kind of say, do we want to take advantage of those opportunities, and let's build ourselves, organize ourselves, and go and get them. I think the doors are open. How much of us are really interested in going after it? And I think, in as much as we might want to say that the opportunities are available and the government is not pushing, I think maybe some initiatives that we may take might force them to start behaving in a different way. America went there to sell America, right? 2 weeks ago, they went to sell $200 billion of American money into Guyana to make sure that their companies are taken care of. I mean, one sensible thing would be for us to have a diaspora a group to make a visit to Guyana and say, hey, we want to figure out how best we can take advantage of these opportunities. Why wait on President Irfan Ali to come to diaspora to tell us what's available? We know what's available. Let's form a group. Let's go to Guyana and let's talk to the government on a level playing field as to, hey, this we've got, this is what you have, and how we can put it together. And I think
that's Salim, we have actually done that even in the last administration. Dr. Rose and we went to Brooklyn. We met with the people in Brooklyn. Here in Queens, we met with the people in Queens. But the thing is, because we are not seen as part of the PPP groups, the guys on the PPP didn't come. So it was like the AFC guys, the PNC guys. Those people came, But we didn't get the cross-section of the Guyanese community per se. And that's our problem. How do we get everyone involved? Now that the PP in office, I think the PP guys would come and the PNC guy would stay away. And that's our problem.
I mean,
now let me say this quickly.
Stop in this cycle of ethnopolitics. What we can do as organization and as individuals is to just look at the opportunity and go after it. As diaspora people, like average Americans, we don't need to be told about some of these things. We just go and get it. And for us to wait for unity and wait for ethnic, brouhaha and all of us together singing and dancing together, I mean, that's good, but I don't think a diaspora organization is meant to, to undo what 50 years of ethnic politics have done.
Let me say this quickly.
Yeah,
Sam spoke about systems. Minister, the government is a system. You can't develop a system outside of the government without their blessings and expect them to implement your system. It never happened in no country. It's not happening in Guyana. This government, last government, or no government at all, unless we're dreamers. So when you talk about we have to develop systems, now we can develop all the systems possible. Will it be accepted by the government? Because the government always believe that they know it all, and these are governments, not this government, but they know it all, and they must have the final say, and they must put everything in place, not the people. The only thing they need the people for is to vote for them. After that voting, the people's input is not there. And that's the reality. Don't tell me we got to do our own thing and do it. You know when people trying to do their own thing? For example, if APNU is in office, PP supporters go to Guyana and want to invest, they're not going to give them no chance. And the same for the PEP. I'm speaking broadly of both parties. You have to have party affiliations for investments. You have to have party affiliations to meet with people and to do everything. If you're not a party affiliator, you're not going to meet with these people. And they're going to just look at you and ignore you, and they're gone. That's the reality in most third world country politics, not only in Guyana, and even here in the United States, Canada. Party affiliation is those people that get the cream of the crop. The rest get the crumbs.
I tend to agree with
Except
you.
Salim.
What I want to say is that I will only do things that I can control. I can't control what the government do, what the government don't do, what ministers do, what the ministers can do. But what I can control is what my involvement is in Guyana. And based on my experience and my skills and the tools that I have available and the resources that surround me, I use that to do what I have to, because I have control over those things.
No, but that's if you can have control, but that's if they allow you to do it. That's if they allow you to do it. You can have all the control. Every one of us control over what we do. But can we extend our control to the government? Any government, I'm not talking about this government, any government, PEP, PNC, whatever it is. Can we extend our control, what we control, to say, look, this is what I want to do, and accept it? Hell no, it don't happen like that in governments.
In my last 5-6 years, I have done things in Guyana without government help or support.
All of us did, but at what level?
Gentlemen. What I think is happening here is, and Dr. Rose is right, Salim, too, in context. When AFC was in government, unless you know these guys, you don't meet them. The PP is now back in government, appears as though they're seeing PP guys. But guess what? When a white man turn up, they see the white man.
Exactly.
They don't see the other people, but they're ready to see the white guy, because whatever this white guy come with seems to be the bread from heaven. But you Guyanese, whether you're supporting the party or not, you're not relevant, and that's the problem.
And that's why I believe fundamentally, when I'm talking to the guys in Guyana, is to ensure that there's almost an affirmative approach to the diaspora. Give the diaspora, better opportunities than everyone else, than the white guy, so to speak. But again, see, the white guy comes with money. He comes organized. He comes with so much more. When we go, we're looking for favors, or we're looking for some kind of space or some kind of opportunity. We need to repackage ourselves as diaspora. We've been in the United States for 50 years as a diaspora in a very strong way. We're not even organized in the diaspora, much less organized to take advantage of opportunities in Guyana. So
Salim,
government side, and there's definitely work to be done on this side. The report that came out from the CSIS did hit the Guyana governments in the past very hard for not employing the right strategy or not to follow up.
Anyway, Salim, as much as you want to listen to you with that CSIS report, it's not accurate. I'll tell you that flat out. But the other thing I want to make to you clear, when you're telling me the white man goes with money, no, he goes to take out money from the country. Guyanese go to invest in the country. He goes to take out money. So don't insult Guyanese and say, well, they don't go with money. Don't do that. It's something that we grew up in this system where we are seeing only one side of the coin. We are so fractured, so disunited that we allow other people to come in and make us fools. Don't tell me the white man go there with money to invest. He go to take out money from the country.
And that's their business model. What's our business model?
Well, you don't tell me that they go to invest and they go with their money.
Well,
that's my point.
Okay, gentlemen.
Anyway, it was nice. It was nice being here. We got to come to an end. It was a good conversation we had among ourselves.
Up and kind of ensure that we are also at that level.
And Mr. Najruddin, for your information, sir, when the white man go there, they get so much tax break that their tax break is much more than they invest in the country. And what they did, they rape our country. Look, OMI did. OMI went in, they got back again, but they took all this money out. What we get? 5% of what they declared. We don't know what all the production of gold that they made. The same thing the Chinese are going to do us now, the same thing everybody's doing us. They're going in, they're raping our country, and we're getting very little.
Charles, the only way to mitigate that is to ensure that you're organized and you have a strategy and a plan. So far, as I'm concerned, as a member of the diaspora, of that 800,000 diaspora, we are not. We need to get our act together in a more formal way, a more structured way, and to start lobbying Guyana and Guyana government for certain benefits.
Okay, Salim, so we are appointing you on officially now as the leader of that group. So get the people organized. Dr. Rose is going to get the people here in Queens and Brooklyn organized. Let us start work. We need to get something going.
The only way you can gain access into any country is if you're organized and you represent a base. So us talking and complaining about Guyana government and their access and so on will not take us anywhere. I think we've got to move to the next level and organize.
Salim, you're saying that the only way, I believe there are many ways, not one way. But let me say that, as I said to you, and I'm going to repeat this again.
I'm saying the most efficient way is
I don't get involved in semantics. When I'm doing something like I'm doing here tonight, is business. This is how I know to do it. And I'm saying to you, you can be organized all you want. If there's a PP up to government in office, PPP will not get access to them, and vice versa. You can organize all you want. So you don't turn it. The government will have to make it possible, any government, for everybody to have an equal opportunity chance. And not look at the supporters and the support. That's what they have to do. So there are many ways of doing that. But don't tell people that they have to organize. People have tried that. People have organized time and time again. But when they went to Guyana, no, you're not a party supporter. We can't accommodate you. This is what's happening in the country. That's the reality on the ground.
And honestly, that is something that the diaspora cannot solve either. That's a deep...
No, the government has to solve it.
At Guyana,
governments have to solve it.
That's ethnic politics. That's ethnic policy. That's not business or investment. So,
gentlemen,
that has to be addressed on the ground in Guyana.
This discussion has been lively and beautiful. I think our audience are enjoying it, but we'll have to bring it to an end. I want to thank you, Salim. I want to thank you, Dr. Rose. And of course, we want to thank the Foreign Secretary, Mr. Persaud, for joining us earlier. Next week, gentlemen and ladies, we'll be back again. I want to encourage you guys. Guyana Airport is open. if you're booking your tickets to go to Guyana, please do it through TravelSpan. So Nohar Singh, that TravelSpan can get a commission on your ticket. The price is the same. As a matter of fact, if you book it through TravelSpan, if you have to change your ticket or you want to cancel, whatever you do, they can do it for you. You don't have no headache after that. So please use them. And thank you for chipping in your $5 and $10 a month. Guys, a 6-pack of beer is what? I don't know, $10? I don't even know. But at least put it aside and contribute that to Globespan so we can continue this program. And we'll continue this lively discussion as we talk about Guyana and the diaspora. And we look forward. Dr. Rose, Salim, you guys have to work together now to form groups, cohesive groups, so together we can go and develop Guyana. Thank you so much for being in the program tonight.
Thank you,
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Rose.
Thanks.
And to our audience, we want to thank you so much to Nohar Singh and to Devin. All the best. Until next time, God bless you and God bless our great country. Thank you.
Same here.